Switch it up, make it right, cause I'm getting tired. And even though I'm blessing things, I'm feeling like I need a change. Time to make you move, go and get your breakthrough. So what you feeling like? Get up, turn on the light, time to make it right. This is your new life. Come on, let's go. Change your whole headspace. Your past is not today, it is not too late. Find a mirror place, and then you say, be like, hey, sexy good stuff. More than enough, so go out and be great and stuff. Go out and do what you love, like hey, sexy good stuff.
Yeah, this is it. This is the theme. This is my theme song. Yeah, this is my theme song. Yeah.
Go out and do what you love, right? This job drive me crazy. Wanna live like this?
Hey, online family. Hey, Facebook. I'm here in St. Louis with some beautiful people from Skepticon. Yes, Skepticon. So glad to see everybody. So glad to see everybody. We'll get started soon. But as of right now, just take it slow. Move your hips, move your chest. Whatever feels best for you. What you?
Change your whole headspace. Your past is not today. It is not too late. Find a mirror place, and then you say, hey, sexy good stuff. Always
stuff. Go out and do what you love.
Like, hey, sexy, good stuff. You are way more than enough, so go out and be great and stuff. Go out and do what you love right now. Sexy, good stuff. You are way more than enough, so
Hey,
go
there we go,
out
that's
and
right.
be great and stuff. Go out and do what you love. Like, hey, sexy, good stuff. You are way more than enough, so go out and be great and stuff. Go out and do what you love right now.
Skepticon, how we feeling? Y'all had a few good days. I heard y'all had some, look, right, you're here. I've heard y'all had some trivia last night. I heard y'all had some stuff going on. There were some really great conversations. I popped in briefly after being tired for driving for 8 hours. Pardon my voice too, I probably still sound like I'm just waking up. But it's been a very sinusy, pressure time for me. But I am Jay Exodus. Wonderful to meet all of you. If you are not familiar with me, I am also known on Instagram as the Ethical Evangelist. Probably an interesting combination, but let's just put it this way. I like to fuck shit up in a really healthy way, right? Am I allowed to say fuck? Yeah. Okay. All right, great. So the other thing is that, yeah, I am based in New York. And I am also currently in Minneapolis. So if you find me, you'll probably find me floating around. I have an archetype of a fairy. That's normal for me. But otherwise, I'm glad to be here in St. Louis, glad to be with my Skepticon family. I had the wonderful opportunity to meet Stephanie when I was in, where were we, Stephanie?
DC the first time.
Yeah, that's right. It was a DC? 'Cause I don't see. That's how many places I go. I don't even remember. And then weren't you at Denver?
Yeah.
Okay, then it was Denver. Yeah, and then you saw Mr. Willy Wonka, and everybody was moving around with Mr. Willy Wonka, which I did not bring with me today. But I'm very excited to be here. My work is around community, developing community. Most of the time, you will see me in congregational life. I'm a congregational humanist. I support and lead, consult with congregational communities. And so that might be a little bit of a tough word for some process, for those who process that word. But I just want to say, like, when I use that word, I actually come with the mindset of, I use congregation as an antonym for segregation. So it is not this idea of just, we're going to have a religious experience, or I'm going to put you on some little inspirational road of, feel good and fuzzy on the inside. My approach is more so like, let's keep it real. Let's keep it sexy. And let's keep it fun, right? Otherwise, I'm not doing my job. But at the same time, right, with all of this, there's a lot of good trouble. So I'm really excited to have also with me Serena, my nibbling. I'm actually, yeah, like, you want to just introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Serena. I'm here with Jay today, and it's awesome. We're gonna have some fun.
Yeah. So it's really exciting. So we probably know where this is going to go later, but I want to just do something respectfully. When it comes to this work, I'm going to invite you to join me in libations. If you are not familiar with the context of libations, I use the African-based approach to libations, being that my ancestors and so on and so forth would use libations. It is normally a pouring of a liquid into a vessel, and we would say the names of our ancestors or those who have gone before us. Today, I decided that we were going to first do the honoring of two ancestors, and those two ancestors are Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera. And when those, of course, grain go into the vessel, we say a word, ashe, meaning make it happen, okay? And that is in Yoruba. So I just want to invite you to say ashe. Ashe. Okay. And then what I'm going to invite you to do now, since I've said the names of two ancestors for me, I invite you to say any names of ancestors, transcestors that you feel need to be welcomed into this space, please. Polly Murray. Ashe. James Baldwin. You may add a name. Yeah. Ashe. Audre Lorde. Feel free to add a name if you want to.
Daniel Alexander.
Ashe.
From the Skepticon family, one for me.
Ashe. Ronnie J. Hooper. Ashe.
My mom, Janice Dent.
Janice Dent. Thank you. Ashe.
Nikki Lloyd Erica's.
Nikki Lloyd Ericas. Thank you. Ashe. Nikki Giovanni. Ashe. Take the two. Two. Take these. And you got that too. I got these. And for any names that have not been called, and for any names that cannot be named, we say Ashe. 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 Right. That is a practice. It is a practice to remember names of those who we hold great. In the words of Maya Angelou, she would say that in one of her poems called The Great Ones Fall, she says, we are better because they existed. And as a result, we are better because many of those who fought, did justice work, Dr. James Cone, as well as others, James Baldwin, Audrey, as you heard me mention before, and so many of our own personal ancestors, my father, your mother, right? There might be a cousin, there might be others that we carry actually with us. They are probably a little bit more closer to us than what we think because we do share genealogy with them, right? So it's not just like we're just saying something in the spirit. We're saying something that's part of our makeup, our DNA. And so I just invite us to always think about those and have those memories and allow for them to rest with us. And so let us move into just kind of honoring them in that space and get our minds together for this wonderful talk that we're gonna have. Song by my cousin called Hush. Listen carefully to the words.
Hush, little baby, don't say your dreams too loud. Everybody's listening, whispering when you're not around. They'll love then hate you even faster. So gag them with your happy ever after. Hush, little baby, don't let them see you cry. Everybody's listening, wishing it, but still you will rise. They'll treat you as if you don't matter. Someday you use their ego as a ladder. So keep your foot on their neck and shake the table with pride. You may not blend with the rest, but I assure you it's fine. Try to make you feel small, but you are bigger than life. So run short and alive. They'll get no peace in the night. They'll get no peace in the night. They'll get no peace. Hush, little baby, careful when you speak your mind. Everybody's judging, I mean loving you. Play safe and you'll be fine. Making waves can break a rafter, but sometimes there is beauty in disaster. Hush, little baby, careful when you take a step. You'll become a target if departed, so just sit with the rest. Or you can live a life of freedom. Learn to love yourself and you won't need them. So this is what I wish for you. Don't get no peace in the night. To live your life however you choose. Don't get no peace in the night. Whether reach for the sky or laying low from the light. Whether blowing their minds, I wish the greatest of times. Just do whatever you choose to. They'll
get no peace. Shh. See one day, one day, one day. Yeah, I gotta see one day, one day, one day.
Thank you. That's by Kavion. If you're looking for anything new, fresh, artist based in New York. Actually did the opening song, Sexy Good. So if you're looking for someone, you just like, I just want to just throw down, feel good about myself. That's Kavion, my cousin. I'm so glad that we work together. So let's get this talk talking. Let's get this talk talking for real. I'm glad, because Serena's about to offer me some new perspective and things, but I know we've been, I want to know in this audience, if I may ask a reflective question. How do we feel about violence? Is it necessary? Is it when is it justified? When is it justified? When is violence justified is my question.
Ooh, man. It is a tough one.
The face of oppression. You giving me some Malcolm X?
In the face of safety.
In the face of safety.
In defense of the oppressed.
Yeah. I hear this, right? This idea of it being safety for those who oppress, right? Oftentimes someone who ends up in a lot of, I'll say, heavy liberal boomer-based spaces. We spend time, glorifying Dr. King and nonviolence. And I often sit in that space with a lot of concern, because then the dialogue about Malcolm is that he was a violent man. And I'm like, no, Malcolm actually never did anything to anybody. And Malcolm actually knew the New York State Penalty Code, which stated at the time that if you hit me, I have the right to hit you back, right? So this idea of protection around safety, here it is, somebody from Harlem who had street smarts understood the New York penalty code. Now, Malcolm is not a doctor or PhD candidate, right? But he got some street sidewalk fare, in the words of Billy Joel, right? It's a whole framing. But I myself, when just as of late, how is, because what? Serena, you're what?
I'm 17.
17.
Yeah, I'm relatively.
So how do you feel about, I'm just gonna say, a good old ass whooping? How does that work in your generation?
How does that work?
I'm 40, by the way, so that's not, I'm not Serena's age.
I personally feel like it depends on a case-by-case basis. For example, if it's in the face of oppression, like others have said, it's completely justified.
Mm-hmm.
However, if it's just for the sake of being violent,
Mm-hmm.
that is not okay.
Yeah. I actually, it's funny because I was listening as we were getting ourselves together. There was this whole conversation about, well, there wasn't a conversation, it was a mentioning of we need more riots. And I was like, ooh. I was like, ooh, that's interesting, good trouble, right? That's good trouble if we think about it carefully, if it's strategically done. Some places are still trying to recoup after experiencing riots. As I think about moments of being that part of my life, I've stayed in Baltimore when Freddie Gray happened. One of the things about Freddie Gray was that the riots happened right after. But the tough part about the riots with Freddie Gray is that they were in a tension, if you will, because much of Baltimore is sectioned off in little clusters of underserved, economically disenfranchised communities. So the riots were not healthy for predominantly those communities, because at the end of the day, some of those did not have the assurance to really cover and get their buildings fixed, versus maybe if we look at, George Floyd.
Yep.
right? And George Floyd, and then what I think most of the people who were from that area moved to uptown of Minneapolis, if you're familiar with that area. And then now we don't have a Target and we don't have a few other things.
Yeah, they primarily focused on like the commercial aspect of like burning down the stores, but leaving the residential areas, because burning down residential areas does nothing except for harm people.
Yeah.
Whereas burning down the stores, it sends a message to the corporations that this is not okay, sends a message to the government because commerce is down.
No, and that's the thing. It's like, right, it's like really also, I see the strategicness in that. I just wanted to get rid of that noise. I was like, oh God. You know, I see the strategicness in that because, I mean, it is a thing of wealth and economics and how one sees what is available. I think one of the things that I want to point us to as well in this conversation, that when we deal with violence or when we are dealing with ideas around riots, that, you know, this sense of good trouble, in the words of the late senator, slipping my name, I'm slipping, John Thank you, John Lewis. I was like, hold on, Mom. I'm like, I'm looking at his face in my head. You know, like that's what he would talk about. You know, his generation knew about good trouble. What is good trouble for you in your mind?
Good trouble for me in my mind. Whatever it comes, it's ultimately good trouble is what leads to something better. It might be bad in the moment, but it would lead to the fruits of your labor will lead to something better. Whereas bad trouble, it just leads to nothing. It just leads to more and more hate, more and more violence.
You know, this is, yeah. What is good trouble for some of you in this room? What does that look like? Have you been a part of good trouble at all?
Disrupting power.
Come on, Skepticon, disrupting power. What else?
No, I've been on the receiving end. In 2000, the riots in Cincinnati over the killing of Timothy Thomas.
Wow.
Which is really ancient history at this point, but my wife and I were living in that neighborhood. That was, and you talk about the isolated pockets over the Rhine. That neighborhood where that shooting happened was an African-American, mostly African-American, and poorer neighborhood.
Yeah.
That was, and lots of freak yards. People lived there because it was cheap.
Yeah.
But the police very specifically pushed those people, that riot, back into the neighborhood. They wouldn't let them cross. They made a big line saying, "You are not crossing into the rest of downtown." And yeah, it took a long time to recover because of the poor neighborhood.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I understand that rioting can make a lot of difference, but also, careful what you burn down.
Right? Yeah, there is that. That's what I said. Yeah, like, I mean, burning down a Target is very different than burning down your own personal neighborhood. And I think one of the things that I sit with, too, is, you know, I know that, like, we're sometimes we can be very big on, like, being allies. You know, like, oh, I'm an ally. And it's another conversation of, like, oh, I'm an accomplice. And then I'm like, well, where are the culprits? Where are the culprits? Where are the people who actually, we all in this together? And why do I bring that in? Because I think, as you know, some of y'all are probably familiar as of late with the Alabama sweet tea party. You know, just, it's clear, it was very clear. Look, right? It is. It was the sweet tea. It was the sweet tea party, okay? You know, it wasn't the Boston Tea Party. It was the sweet tea party, okay? If you've been down to Atlanta, y'all know how to make some tea. You know, if you've been down to Alabama, you know how to make some tea. Down south, we make tea. We make tea with sugar, with a lot of sugar. But I think it is important to look at that dynamic, to also see the framing of not only allyship and accomplices, but actually culprits, folk who are going to get in trouble, who are going to go to jail together. That's intense. And we're going to have an interview today with with the folding chair?
Most certainly.
Okay.
Most certainly.
Yeah. Folding chair will be interviewed today. That's our special guest. And so he's gonna give us some information. But I want to give us a little bit of a. Can we give some context about see some of these images today? And can we give a round of applause for Justice? Justice is always on point with my tech. This takes some crazy time, huh? No, let's do the sweet tea party first. Got you. Thank you. And then we'll go to the, because I got to point out some of these elements since the chair is a part of these elements.
I completely missed this story.
Okay.
It's the cycle.
Hold on. Go back, Justice. So here is the beginning. I want us to just pay very, very close attention. This assault starts because the dock worker who's in white, the black gentleman, is actually trying to get this white man to move his platoon so that the ferry can dock. And it breaks out into a fight. And then, of course, the other people from the platoon start stomping and beating up on the gentleman. Then a bystander, who actually steps in, whose name is Eric Walter, just steps in, and then a young man jumps from the ferry, who is a crew person on the ferry, swims across the water to the support and the aid of the 3 other black folk now, and now is ready to get jiggy with it, in the words of Will Smith. So here's another angle, and the gentlemen get back to the platoon where they were supposed to move. They still don't decide to move. And now, if you notice, everyone in blue is everyone from the ferry. All the black workers from the ferry. These are not. It becomes very intense. And there are some who are still, we got falling in the water. It's, and there's just a lot of disruption. And now, I'm very fascinated to see how, it's kind of like, well, why are y'all hitting us? Why are y'all fighting us? Now here come the police at this point. And these people still have not moved the platoon, which is all that was required. And now we go to the alcove of that. Now, as they move further into the next section, this is when we're introduced to the next part where this other community of folk start to fight, and then the chair comes in, and people are being bopped on the head like it's WWF. And so, when we see that sweet tea party, what do you think about that, Serena? Because I mean, it's fresh for you.
Oh yeah, no, this is my first time seeing the video. I've known about it for a long time, but I've never gone out of my way to see it, so just never seen it. It's justified. Looking at the context, not all it was a primarily, the platoon was there because the the cruise ship couldn't park. And pretty much all the crew workers and all the people on that cruise ship were people of color, whereas all the people on the platoon were white.
Yeah.
And it devolved into, as people say, this race war. Because it becomes just very intense with eye gouging, and it judges the question,
one of the things that I think is very funny, when we talk about justification here too, and something that you're bringing up for me, the location of that dock is a historical site. And that is where most of the enslaved were brought. They were paraded down the primary street to that dock is called Commerce Street, Commerce Road. It has kept its name because it was a space for trading enslaved folk. So, here it is, again, we see now a different shift in narrative. Predominantly black workers are in the same area. And what amazes me is that there is a clear signal. The gentleman takes off his hat, throws it up in the air, right? This, in some way, has always been prepared for within the community, which lets you see how much protection has to go in to even the smallest minute concern. And I would not have expected anybody to get that escalated over moving their boat.
Oh yeah, for sure. They just went into violence like literally 30 seconds in. That's not okay.
And I mean, it wasn't like and this is what fascinates me. Even as we're here in St. Louis, we can talk about places like, Ferguson. I came down here during Ferguson, and in marched and protest as well. And one of the things that I remember in the cases, and I don't know if you recall this, but the police officer described Mike Brown, said that he was, let me get it right. I can hear his voice in my head, but I want to get it right. That the suspect had turned into the Incredible Hulk. And his eyes filled up like a demon. He dehumanizes him. He begins to turn him into a monster, a formation of what philosophically we would say thingification. Makes him into a thing worth attacking, right? A thing worth attacking. And we as folk of color, we as queer folk, we as those on the, women have even been seen as things, and we in some way make them objects, and we dehumanize them in their lived experience because they don't fit, as my dear sibling Josiah was offering us yesterday, the kind of the framework of the body, the majority body, which is a cis white male, right, who is moving in the world. And if you don't look like that, who are you? And I'm curious, Serena, when you think about moments like what happened with Mike, would you say that that thingification happened in that moment where they started attacking the security guard? Because it was only one person fighting at first, and then everybody starts literally all these white men from the platoon start coming in.
I honestly don't know if they would even say it was thingification, but all I know is that, yeah.
I mean, it is Alabama.
But what it was is like all these people, one person starts fighting and all these other people come in. Mm-hmm. And the person that they're fighting is a person of color. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't be surprised, I don't know what they'd say. Yeah. I don't know their opinions on any of this stuff. But it wouldn't surprise me if they came in with the idea of racial bias and that the reason why they jumped in was because it was a person of color. Yeah. That wouldn't surprise me.
This is, I'll say Serena would make a good ethicist at this point. Really good ethicist, right? I don't know anyone's opinion. But this is funny because this is also what's been brought up, as of late. Is this racially motivated? Yeah. Right? You want to say yes, right?
Yeah,
Or if it's not, it's still racial.
Right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I mean, clearly, every time we look at a shot, it's literally like people stepping in, it's you know, multi-universe and like, you know, and it's like, I mean, I've seen all the different memes where it's like, you know, people have split up like the Street Fighter characters, like all the black people on one side, all the white people on one side. I'm like, you know, it looks like that. We can't deny it. And I think too, we have to look at, which is something I often observe, even when I'm in Minneapolis. I see the segregation. I see the segregation. I do. And it breaks my heart because I'm like, well, how do we make this work? But I mean, you know, in the words of Medea, you're gonna walk up and you're gonna limp back if you're gonna touch one of my own. You know, you thought you would come in this way, but I'm gonna make you limp. You go back home. Okay, that's what it is. I mean, if somebody touch you, I'm gonna lose my cool, right? But I think like it's one of those things. We need to get our guests over here, because Justice, do you have the image where our chair friend being used to the best of? Oh, it's not on that sheet? Okay. No, it's okay. So let's do this. Hit me off with George Kasuth, the soundbite. Because we need to get a little history about this chair and the meme. So if you're not familiar with George Kasuth, I offer you this and this wonderful soundbite from the MoMA.
The artist, Joseph Kasuth, speaking in 1988.
The piece, in fact, the Museum of Art owns called 103 Chairs, I did when I was 20. The museum didn't know I was 20 when they followed it, of course. I never told anyone my age until I was 28. A deliberate strategy on my part to appear as old as I could and be taken as seriously as I could, because I'd really worked very hard painting and all that, and until I was 20, it was very difficult for me to quit painting. But on the other hand, I felt that there was this other thing, art, I could do.
Chief Curator of the Department of Painting and Sculpture, Ann Temkin.
Kasuth's work is part of the very beginning of what we call today conceptual art. Kasuth had studied philosophy, and especially thinkers like Wittgenstein, who were so concerned with what makes knowing knowing. And Kasuth extended that to what makes art art, and he wanted to explore that in early works such as this one, where it's not about something beautiful to look at, but instead art that makes you think. And the way that this art makes you think, of course, is very simple. You have 3 ways of being a chair. You can be a photo of a chair, you can be the wood chair, or you can be a dictionary definition of a chair, which is words. So for Kasuth, drawing that to our attention was his work of art. There was nothing about this particular chair that he thought was artistic or precious. There's absolutely nothing artistically valuable about this particular photograph. The pleasure that you get from this work is not one of aesthetics, but the pleasure of your own thinking. And I think that does bring a smile. In an ideal world, we wouldn't be putting this work of art on a platform, because really the artist's intention is to show these 3 objects just sitting in the gallery, sitting in a room in a very direct way.
You know, I love this piece. I learned this in art history. And it's broken up into the idea of an index, which is the definition. The chair, physical chair itself is the image, is the icon, and the photo itself is the image. 3 eyes, as we would call them. It's a brilliant piece of work, but I have to say, I would agree with the commentary that the only pleasure you get is thinking. It's not significant, but it's the direct impact of our thinking. How we think about the things we see. That's the reason why I like to bring that into the space. That's the disruption of power to me, because if knowledge is supposed to be power, then I'm always going to disrupt it. Let's bring our friend, the chair. Thank you. It's just wonderful. I'm so glad to have you, Chair, here with me. So much has gone into your life. From what I understand, you have a unique history. Very unique history. Way before Kasuth even found you, correct? Okay, I thought so. Your history starts somewhere early 18, mid 1800s. With Alec, I think you are the offspring of Alexander or Nathaniel Alexander. Yes, okay. So you were just a piece of wood before, and then you modernized. You have so many ancestors. So I'm very interested. How do you feel after your direct encounter? I'll repeat the question. How do you feel after your direct encounter? You know, I mean, you were I would say that you were particularly a culprit. You were a white chair. So moving. You were not only in solidarity. I mean, you're literally, your race card is up. No. It's just concerning. But I what is that? Yeah, I saw how you were, you know, you hit the woman on the head, she fell over. The one that spun around like a little spinning top. Yeah. Yeah. But see, you were grabbed by a man who was a Baptist deacon. You got to watch out for those Baptists. They can be quite intense. A black Baptist is not the same. You know, we like to throw furniture. And yeah, I came out of Pentecostal. I'm kind of Penta-Baptist, but yeah, we throw furniture. Churches have never been the same. That's why white people don't invite us. No, but I see. Yeah. So did you get checked out? Are all your screws tight again? and it came. I know you came out of nowhere. They came out of nowhere. I'm sure. And how is the rest of your family taking it? I mean, I know y'all normally come together. And it was just one of you. They singled you, but you were ready. You were ready, willing, and able. You folded yourself out. You unfolded yourself out to the people. Oh, I was moved. So moved. I know you didn't expect to be called to that moment of the sweet tea party. Normally people sit on you and you just kind of creak a bit. No, I know. Now I'm very honored to have you you were probably one of the best white guests I've ever had. You know? Yeah. We should hang out more. I'll make sure to let everybody, you know what, I'm gonna have a plaque next to you with Malcolm X. I'm gonna make sure that there's a picture with Malcolm X in you because I gotta have my ancestors in this space. Yeah, so you'll be one of the ancestors. Your life will never be folded. You'll be a story unfolded. I'll make sure that everybody knows. You're a winner. You're a winner. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Let's give Chair a round of applause. Oh, such touching stories. It's so beautiful to have such objects and things in the space. Okay, don't come at me. Don't come at me. I know you have feelings too. This is true. Objects have feelings too. If you don't believe me, if you've ever bought anything, every object has an instruction of care. Every object has an instruction of care. Now, if we could all have instructions of care tattooed on our asses, we probably wouldn't get them beat. Right? This is the truth of the matter. But I think that that's something that we need to consider, the way that we think about our ethics of care, how we come to the moment. Being strategic is a part of care. Knowing our place, our position. Not our power, but our position. What would it look like if we changed our ideas of thinking about power to just position? Knowing that we are positioned in places that create meaning or impact. What if we took the moment to look at our privilege, if you say, and really begin to look at that as posture, how we handle ourselves. I'm sure, no, the chair did not expect to be what it is. But it is now the pleasure of our thinking that gives us the opportunity. It's the pleasure of thinking about. The chair is not powerful at all. It's all in, simply, its position and posture. How is it used? How does it benefit others? And in this case, it did. Now it's an icon. It's an icon living, in the words of Jaden Smith, And I think that that's, one of the things that I want us to be able to sit with today. In these, I want to give us some time because I'm going to close up. But, when we have an issue where we have power involved and when we feel privilege is taking over and we see those dynamics in the room, I just want to remind us of the beautiful quote by Shirley Chisholm, who says, when they don't make any room for you, you bring a folding chair. Okay? Are there any questions? Is there anything that anybody wants to talk about? Did you bring your folding chair?
I believe we couldn't find a folding chair, which is sad. I looked under the ring.
Well, Justice, you want to kick me some music? For the rest of you, dance it out, have a good time. Good morning to you. Good morning.
Give it all I need.